Why, hello there. It's your buddy Reese Herrmann with the House Divided podcast, August 4th, 2020. It's a Tuesday. Well, this has been a pretty fun news week, especially today. First, I'm going to touch really quick on something that I think is important to just be mentioned, but I'm going to try not to linger on it too much. The body cam footage that was released from some of the cops involved in the killing of George Floyd. The footage changes the narrative, is that, I guess, George Floyd was saying he couldn't breathe before Chauvin ever put his knee on his neck. And it looks like George Floyd was frantic and desperately panicking and begging for his life before his life was actually put in danger by the officers, which makes it seem as though the media was sort of trying to cover this up. Or perhaps it was Keith Ellison with the Minnesota Department of Justice, but it seems like somebody was trying to keep this covered up. And that doesn't surprise me. I think everybody pretty much understands that some bad actors within the Democratic left really just want to see this country go up in flames. I mean, some people just want to watch the world burn, man. And I don't know, the fact that that body cam footage wasn't released earlier, the fact that the narrative was swallowed so wholesale by the left, by the media, and by culture at large, without waiting for facts to emerge, with any, including myself, by the way. I made a video on it that you can watch on my YouTube channel, which you're probably listening to this on anyway. But I was on board with it too. I mean, I still don't think that the killing was justified, but as the information is surfacing, it's looking less and less like a killing. Now, I'm not a legal expert, and honestly, I haven't been paying close enough attention to the George Floyd case in particular. But the fact that George Floyd was saying, "I can't breathe," panicking long before the officer ever had his knee on his neck, makes it look as though the officer's ignorance to George Floyd's panicking when he had his knee on his neck was likely not just because he was some racist cop who didn't care about black people. And it sort of changes the narrative. Not that it was justified. I'm not saying it's justified, but, there's some food for thought in there. I mean, not to mention the guy was on, a large amount of fentanyl, which is unfortunate. And ultimately, I mean, to me, it almost seems like alongside the police brutality issue, we should be talking about the drug issue in the country, which arguably, not even just arguably, very plainly and factually kills a lot more people than police. It's unfortunate. I mean, the guy was sick, and I'm not talking about the coronavirus, which he did claim he had, but the guy was a drug addict, which is not a character flaw. It is a sickness. Once you start doing drugs and you get addicted, at that point, it becomes something that's out of your control. And I feel like if America really focused on the drug problem to begin with, maybe he never would have been put in that position. If we focus on the drug problem in a way that doesn't simply involve throwing people in jail because they're sick. But anyway, I digress. The reason that this is this new body cam footage is significant is because how quick the Black Lives Matter movement, the Democratic left, and even the middle, I mean, the country really went on board with the whole radical anti-racism movement. And I wouldn't even say anti-racism movement because we're all anti-racist here. But the far left, quote-unquote, anti-racism movement. They've really gotten on board with it. The cancel culture around, Aunt Jemima and things of that nature. But the reason that this body cam footage has upset me is because we were so quick. America, and the world too. I mean, these protests aren't just isolated to America, but we were so quick to jump the gun, start burning places down and rioting and protesting and defunding the police. I mean, come on, man. Minneapolis voted to abolish the police. And it looks like what happened may not have been murder. At least not first or second degree murder. At the very least, even if Chauvin's knee did cause the death of George Floyd, the body cam footage is showing that was likely not first or second degree murder. And he's likely not going to, Derek Chauvin's likely not going to get charged with first or second degree murder. And yet, we're still defunding getting rid of the Minneapolis police, and all across the country, the Democratic left has embraced defunding the police. Crime has gone up. In Minneapolis, since Memorial Day, there have been over 20 shootings. Not 20 shootings. There have been over 20 murders in Minneapolis since Memorial Day. A city that normally gets somewhere between 50 and 100 murders in a year got 20 in 2 months. That's just upsetting. I think it was the Minneapolis chief of police, but I am not sure about that, and I don't have the statement in front of me because I'm unprofessional, but some spokesman of the Minneapolis Police Department made the claim that there have been about 3 shootings a day in Minneapolis since this whole George Floyd incident and the protests that ensued after. People are dying on a large scale, and mostly black people, mostly African Americans, because of a lawlessness that has ensued in the wake of a movement by the name of Black Lives Matter. The irony here is staggering. And I don't like reiterating conservative talking points unless there's a lot of, unless they're actually good arguments. I don't just like reiterating conservative talking points, let's say that. But man, it just seems like if Black lives really matter, then maybe we should look at these things rationally, rather than causing a surge of lawlessness that gets black people killed. Maybe we should listen to people who may disagree with the mainstream narrative, people like myself, people who are, run-of-the-mill Republicans. Maybe listen to Ben Shapiro talk about it. I haven't actually heard him talk about this, and I'm not trying to plug another person's podcast on my own podcast, but, I feel as though and I say we as in America in general, because it seems as though, at least if you look at the media, the mainstream media, which I do frequently, it seems as though the general American attitude is on the side of the protests and not on the side of rationality. But I think what we need to do is we need to just start listening to everybody. Even if their opinions offend us, and I don't mean me because I don't get offended. At least not by opinions. Usually. I think. I don't know. Do I get offended? Jamie, pull up the times I got offended. You get it? That was funny. Okay. But if we just talked about these things and brought the facts that matter to the table and came to rational conclusions rather than freaking out, protesting on a large scale against something that we don't know the facts of, then maybe we could actually get somewhere. Also, less policing, man. I mean, come on. Is less policing really the answer? Is policing actually a significant cause of death among black folks? Of course not. Of course not. Murder, mostly gang-related crime, is a leading cause of death among black folks. And yet, it seems the best solution to gang crime is more policing, and yet we want less policing. And we see it right now. It's happening. I mean, places are trying to defund the police. Police are getting occupied. Policing is going down across the country, and crime is going up. More black people are dying because of the Black Lives Matter movement. And it's just upsetting. It's just upsetting. As somebody who is not a racist and genuinely doesn't want to see black people die, it is imperative of me to oppose this movement. As somebody who genuinely cares about the lives of black people, I need, and you too, you need to, if you care about the lives of black people, you need to oppose the Black Lives Matter movement, or at least need to oppose the goals that are being espoused by their leaders and by the leaders of the Democratic left, because less policing and less law and order is going to get more black people killed, and other people of other races too, but primarily black people. Anyway, I was hoping I'd talk about that for a little less time, because I'm sick of talking about the protests. I'm sick of talking about racism. I want politics to go back to normal. Not that it hasn't been like this for 5, 6, 7 years, but guns is something I wanted to talk about, which ultimately does still tie back to the riots and protests, but guns. If you saw the Louisville standoff between the, what was it called, the Not Fucking Around Coalition, which, okay, as silly as I believe black nationalism, same with white nationalism, as silly as I think it is, the Not Fucking Around Coalition is an incredible name, and I wish that some conservative movement took it first. Because, God, that's good. That's just funny. But with the standoff, if you don't know what it is, it's a militia that formed. I don't know how long it's been around, but it joined a protest in Louisville with about 2,500 armed black nationalists. That's people who want an African American state that is separate to the United States. It's like white nationalism. White nationalists want to kick out all non-white people. Black nationalists want to kick out all non-black people. I mean, ultimately, it's ethno-nationalism, which is something that should always be opposed, no matter which race is promoting it. But the standoff between that and the media said it was a white supremacist militia. Now, generally speaking, if the media says something is white supremacist, it's probably middle of the road conservative, but I didn't look into it enough. Standoffs between militias are not good. You don't need to be a political science major to know that. Standoffs between militias are bad. You can put that one on a bumper sticker, okay? It's looking more and more like this country is on the verge of some sort of armed confrontation in the domestic sphere. That's not saying civil war necessarily, but something resembling civil war, some sort of revolt, some sort of fight. And it is looking more and more every day like every day the right's message on guns is being affirmed more and more, is what I'm trying to say. The idea that this country could destabilize at any moment, and we need, as the people, need to be armed and ready to defend ourselves, our property, our families, and our states against whatever armed insurrection may rise, or government crackdown, depending on who's in charge and depending on who rises up, may or may not rise up. I think it's important to stay armed right now, guys. Just be safe, Learn how to use guns. Learn about them. Learn about, the difference between an assault rifle and a rifle. Learn the difference between an M4/M16 and an AR-15. Learn, educate yourself on guns, arm up, keep yourself safe. With businesses being threatened in riots, places being burned down, and crime being on the rise, it's as important a time as any to make sure that you are armed and prepared for anything. Militias versus militias should have people worried. People should be worried. I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm not trying to say, oh, be scared, be scared. I'm not part of the mainstream media. Part of this underground media. I only get like 20 views a video. Hopefully not for long. But people should be cautious of the political climate in America right now. Not to mention that rifles are really not a significant cause of gun death in America. Most gun crime is committed with pistols. A very small amount is committed with rifles, and an even smaller amount is committed with quote-unquote military-style rifles, assault weapons, things that the left likes to ban. The reason that they want to ban these guns is twofold, depending on I think that most average Americans have simply bought into the narrative because it's all they see. It's all they see in the media. It's all they see at school. It's all they see in Hollywood. It's all they see on their favorite talk shows. And it's the only thing they see. But the people in charge, the people promoting legislation, and the people in the media pushing these viewpoints, the reason that the hatred for assault, quote-unquote assault style weapons is so high is because A, they're easy to ban because they look scary. It's easy to ban those. It's a foot in the door to further gun control. It's a foot in the door. That's what it is. And then there's the other level, which is the scarier level, and it's that they are active. Some people, some bad actors, some authoritarians are actively opposed not only to the Second Amendment, but to the purpose of the Second Amendment. They are actively opposed to the American people being able to resist the government were it ever to turn on us. And it's looking more and more every day like the government is turning a blind eye to the Constitution, and it looks like pretty soon it's going to start turning on us. The Second Amendment was made for a gun confiscation, right? So if we ever were to get disarmed, or if someone was ever to try to disarm us, we would be able to say no. It's looking more and more like the purpose of the Second Amendment is about to make itself very clear. And if Trump wants to win in 2020, he should seriously run on guns right now. I don't know why he's running on... What is he even running on? The guy's running on what? Just postponing elections? Come on, man. He's frustrating to no end. Especially as somebody who generally considers themselves his ideological ally. Having such a reckless ally is just such a liability to the conservative movement, into the classical liberal movement, into the libertarian movement. She's such a toxic ally. Why do you gotta talk about postponing the election? Why can't you talk about, I don't know, all of the things the left is doing wrong? Which I'm not saying he doesn't. I know he does, but sometimes Trump needs to shut his mouth, and I'm sure supporters of him and people who hate him can all agree on that. Now, how do we get out of this mess? Well, I plan on making a longer a video on this pretty soon, one with a camera, which, by the way, may I mention, these podcasts, I'm going to incorporate a camera pretty soon. I'm getting a studio set up, actually. So these will be a lot better quality, and they'll be better production value. It's just going to go up and up over time. But I'd like to briefly touch on the new political movement that is seeing itself emerge in the United States. Not that it's a new political movement by any means, but the movement that's gaining popularity. And that doesn't really have a name. So it's sort of hard to talk about. But it's essentially the movement around the intellectual dark web. The free speech movement, the individualist movement, perhaps. There are Republicans and Democrats, more Republicans, but liberals, who see, there's two ways to look at politics. You can look at politics as a cage match in which you take a side, or you don't take a side. You can look at politics as a cage match, or you can look at politics as the art of statecraft, and us as a people trying to find a way to make the country work. People on the latter half of the argument are the people who fall into this movement. People who value debate and discussion and reason. They don't all agree on everything. People in this movement, I mean, to give examples would be Shapiro, Dave Rubin, Jordan Peterson, the intellectual dark web. I mean, Andrew Yang, perhaps Ted Cruz. He kind of jumps in and out, depending on the day. But people who want us to find solutions rather than just beat away at the other side. And they want us to find those solutions by having open conversations with people of all viewpoints. And I'll make a longer video on this, but truth be told, this movement needs to gain more popularity, and that is the only way to save America in the future. We need reason to prevail. Reason will prevail! God, I hate myself. Reason will prevail. We're not saying it every time, damn it. But people on the far right and the far left and the moderate right and the moderate left need to start talking to each other, and they gotta stop getting mad at each other. If you disagree, disagreement isn't violence. It's not malevolence. Having a different opinion than someone isn't a bad thing. And proving someone wrong, if you get proven wrong in a conversation, you shouldn't just get mad. You should question your beliefs. That doesn't just go to people on the left who are particularly guilty of this, but it goes to people on the right too. If somebody proves you wrong in a conversation, in a discussion, you should rethink where you stand. Think, why did they prove you wrong? Was it just semantics? Were they able to move words around in a way that made you look wrong? Do you actually have an immoral belief? How can you fix that? But think of these things objectively. Think of it, pretend we're all on the same side, And I understand some people have bad visions for the country. Some people are burning American flags and other people are waving them. But try to have conversations, man. Try to have conversations as much as possible. If you believe something, really think about why you believe in it. And I guess that's the message of this podcast. This one was a little rambly, a little tangential, a little short. It's kind of late. But yeah, stick around. These are only going to get better. I have some skits in mind that I would like to make in the future. I've got some more rants and videos I'd like to make. Again, I'm setting up a studio. The videos haven't really been coming because at the moment I only have one camera, not a whole lot of lights, and a green screen. But I swear, within the next couple of months, I'm going to set up the studio, make the thing look nice, and write some more scripts. So, thank you. God bless America, and remember, always buy a new printer instead of buying new ink because it's cheaper. Stay frosty.